Hey everyone, I'm Ruth. Welcome back to another video. In this tutorial, I'm drawing a lion with watercolor pencils. It's the first time for me that I use this medium, so I'm really excited to show you how it turned out. So let's get right into the tutorial. I start by taping my paper to the surface, and I have made a black background for this watercolor pencil drawing, and I will show you how to do this in another video because it took a really long time and I thought that would be boring for you to see, so I'll make a tutorial on how to make a background with watercolor pencils in the future. And for this drawing I start with the darkest shadows with my black watercolor pencil, and I block in all the darkest shadows on the head of the lion and in the mane. And then I start with the eye, and I use various shades of yellow and brown to block in the basic colors. You can see that I use a very light hand for this first layer. No pressure on my pencils at all. I'm just blocking in the darkest shadows and the basic colors for this first layer. And for this drawing I use Albrecht Dürer watercolor pencils from Faber-Castell. And the paper I am drawing on is Hot Pressed watercolor paper, and I use this watercolor paper because it's watercolor pencils and I will use water to blend my colors together. I must say I also use this paper for colored pencils very often, so it's a really nice paper to draw and paint on. Now I go in with my watercolor brush with a little bit of water on it, and I go over all the areas I just drew in, and you can see that the color really comes to life when you're doing this. And make sure that you don't use too much water, because if you use too much water then you will pick up all the pigment from your paper, and you really don't want that. You want to make sure that the color stays on your paper, of course. So use a tiny amount of water. And then I let this water dry completely. Really make sure that it's completely dry before going in again with your pencils. And I lay down another layer of color. And this time I use several shades of brown, yellow, and my black again. With the black I go over the darkest shadows, and I add some more shadow and some details already, not too many, because I will go over it with my brush again, and then if there's detail already then I will wipe that away. So you see me going over it with the water again, and I cannot stress it enough. Don't use too much water because that will pick up all the pigment from your paper. So now I go in again with my pencils and I start drawing in some more detail. So tiny little hairs on the nose and on the face and everywhere. And I use all my colors that I used before, the black, the browns, the gray, the yellow, just drawing in tiny little details. And I add another layer of darker color to the face, just going over the whole area with my yellow here and my brown, just blocking in the shadows in the mane here and going over it with my water. And you see how bright the colors become when I go over it with my brush. I start drawing in some hairs here in the mane, some definition, And I use my white pencil as well here. And I just wanted to test out if I can go over my background with my colors. And that works. So I'm really happy with that, because I was a little scared that I would not be able to go over the black background, but that won't be a problem at all. So now I draw in some tiny little detail on the face with my white pencil, my black pencil and my browns. Tiny little hairs and another layer of shadow to the mane and into the beard as well. And as you can see, it is all about layering with these watercolor pencils. It takes a lot of patience and many layers to get a realistic look with these watercolor pencils. But if you keep layering and be patient, you will get there in the end. So I go over it with my water again. And I use a bit more water than in the beginning. And you can really see how bright the colors are when I go over it with my water. And then I let this layer dry and I start adding more and more detail. So now I'm drawing in tiny little hairs everywhere on my lion with my white, my gray, my brown, my yellow. Just tiny little details and flyaway hairs as well. Adding some more detail. More black, more shadow to the eye and in between the tiny little hairs to make them stand out. And I really had to remind myself here that patience is key, because I really felt like giving up sometimes during this piece, because I thought it was never going to turn out the way I wanted it to turn out. But I just kept going anyway. And I also tried the X-Acto knife at some point to create some detail, but I found that it did not work with this medium, these watercolor pencils, so I stopped doing that and just went in again with my pencils, adding more detail, more tiny little hairs and more shadow to the mane as well. And my white pencil for the flyaway hairs in the background. And that actually really worked. I didn't expect that. I was really afraid that the background wouldn't take any more pencil, but it did. So I could create that realistic looking mane as well. So onto the beard. I use my white pencil for the detail, for the flyaway hairs, and my black and brown and yellow for the shadows to create that realistic look. So I keep adding color and detail to the face and to the beard as well. I thought the beard was too long, so I added more shadow and blended that out with water and let it dry. And I worked on another area while this area was drying. And more hairs into the background to create that realistic mane. And onto the beard again with more grey tones and black for the shadows and some water to blend it out. And letting that dry again. And more flyaway hairs in the mane, and I use various colors there, my white, my brown, my black as well, And now I'm darkening up all the darkest shadows. And as you can see, this medium is really well for layering. It works perfectly when you go over it with water. Then afterwards, when you let that layer dry, you can almost draw over that as if you are drawing on a new sheet of paper. So that's really nice for layering. More tiny little hairs on the face with my white, my black, my yellows, and also on the beard. Took a while before I was happy with how the beard was looking, so I kept working on that. Adding more detail, and on the mane as well, adding more and more flyaway hairs to create that realistic look. And remember to sharpen your pencils often, because that makes that you can draw in really tiny little details. So onto the whiskers, I used my white pencil for that, to draw those in. And I use a Posca marker to draw in the brightest highlights. And I also went over the whiskers because I thought they were not bright enough with just the white pencil. And I used my white pencil to blend it into the fur because I thought it was looking too harsh with just the Posca. And some more black between the mane to create some more definition, and some more shadow into the eye and the beard as well. So for these final layers I don't use water anymore, because if you go over it with water you lose a lot of detail and I don't want that. But you can use water to correct mistakes. If you're not happy with an area, then you can go over it with water like I did there on the face, and then you can correct your mistakes really easily. So that's really nice with these pencils as well. So I think that it's clear that key to this medium is patience and a lot of layering to create a realistic look. But it is really possible to achieve that. And after all, I was really happy with how this lion turned out. And I will definitely make more tutorials on how to draw and paint with watercolor pencils because I'm loving them a lot. So some final details here on the whiskers and on the mane, and then I'm ready to take off the tape. Thank you very much for watching my video. If you liked it, please give me a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Hit the notification bell to get informed when a new video comes out. You can leave a comment down below and don't forget to share my video with all your friends. You can also follow me on Facebook and Instagram. Thank you. Bye!